pairing the rock-solid security of a FortiGate firewall with the slick, user-friendly captive portal from Cloudi-Fi. So let's jump right in and get it done. So you've got guests, clients, maybe customers, and they all need Wi-Fi. But you can't just give them the password to your main network, right? You need control, you need security, and honestly, you want it to look professional. If that's you, then you've absolutely come to the right place. Okay, let's break this down. The way to think about this is pretty simple. Your FortiGate, that's your network's guardian, the tough, no-nonsense security guard at the door, making sure nothing sketchy gets in. And Cloudi-Fi? Well, that's your friendly concierge, the welcome mat that greets your users, gets them logged in, and makes sure they have a great, seamless experience. Our job is to make these two work together perfectly. So here's the game plan. We'll start with a quick refresher on what a captive portal even is. Then we'll gather the essential info we need from Cloudi-Fi. After that, we'll hop over to FortiGate to build the connection, turn on the portal, set up our firewall rules, and then, of course, we'll do the final checks to make sure everything is running smoothly.
First up, let's just make sure we're all on the same page. What exactly is this captive portal that we're about to build?
You've seen this a million times. It's that login page you get at an airport, a hotel, or your favorite coffee shop. Before you can start scrolling, you're kind of captured and redirected to a special page where you have to agree to their terms or just log in. It's basically the front door between a guest and your network. All right, enough theory, let's get practical. First things first, we got to do a little prep work. We need to grab a few key pieces of information from our Cloudi-Fi account before we even touch the FortiGate. And this really just boils down to two things. First, we need the specific URL for our captive portal splash page. And second, we need the details for the Radius server, which is the system that's going to handle the actual authentication of our users. Now, this is a super important detail, so listen up. When you get that splash page URL from Cloudi-Fi, you have to make one tiny but critical change for it to work with FortiGate. You've got to change the very end of that URL from spsomething.com to spforti.com. This is like a secret handshake that tells the Cloudi-Fi system to use a specific flow for FortiGate. Seriously, don't forget this part. It'll save you a headache later. Okay, next up is the Radius info. You're going to need the IP addresses for Cloudi-Fi servers. The ports are standard, UDP 1812 and 1813. You don't have to worry about those. And finally, the shared secret. Grab that right from the Cloudi-Fi support team, usually through their chatbot. Super easy.
All right, we've got all our info. Now it's time to pop open our FortiGate admin page. We're ready to actually build the bridge that's going to connect these two systems.
We're going to do two main things inside the FortiGate. First, we're going to tell the firewall all about Cloudi-Fi's Radius server, and then we're going to create a special user group that uses that server to authenticate people. So, in your FortiGate, you're going to head over to User and Authentication and create a new Radius server. Give it a name that makes sense, something like Cloudi-Fi_Radius_serve. And then it's just a matter of plugging in that IP address and the secret that we grabbed a minute ago. That's it.
Now, right nearby in the settings, you'll create a new user group. Again, give it a memorable name. And here's the key. Under Remote Groups, you have to link this group back to the Radius server we just made. This is what connects a user group to our external authentication system.
So, why bother with this group? Well, like it says here, it's the bridge. Our firewall rules aren't going to refer to the Radius server directly. Instead, they're going to apply to this group. And how do you get into this group? By logging in successfully through that Radius server. It's just a really clean and organized way to handle access. Okay, our bridge is built. Now for the fun part. Let's actually turn on the captive portal and make it live on our guest's network. It's time to open the gate. So, FortiGate gives you two main ways to do this, and it really just depends on your setup. If you're using Fortinet's own Wi-Fi access points, the FortiAPs, you'll do this in the SSID configuration. If you're using a different brand of access points, or maybe you're doing this for a wired network, you'll apply the settings directly to the network interface. Okay, so if you're using FortiApps, here's the checklist. You'll set the security mode to Open. And yeah, I know, Open sounds weird, but don't worry, the portal is what's going to handle all the security. Then you'll flip the switch to turn the captive portal on. You'll set the authentication portal to External, and this is where you paste that special spforti.com URL we talked about. Finally, link it to the user group we created and tell it where to send users after they log in. We are in the home stretch, but this is arguably the most important part for your security. We need to create the actual firewall policies that control what our guests can do, both before and after they've logged in.
Okay, before you even think about making a firewall rule, stop. You absolutely have to go into the global authentication settings and check the boxes for HTTP and HTTPS. Think about it, the whole system works by redirecting web traffic. If the firewall isn't even looking for authentication on those protocols, your users are just going to get stuck. They'll never see the login page. This is a classic trip up, so make sure you do this first.
So here's a bird's eye view of our firewall policies. And what's really important here is the order. FortiGate reads these rules from top to bottom, so the sequence is everything. We need to allow DNS first, then access to the login page itself, our walled garden, and then, once they're authenticated, we allow them out to the internet. The key thing to understand is that these first two rules are for users who haven't logged in yet. Think of them as creating a little VIP lane. They can't get to the login page if they can't look up its name with DNS, and they can't load the page if they can't reach the Cloudi-Fi servers. So these rules grant that very limited, specific access. And here's another super important step you won't find in the pretty graphical interface. For those first two rules, the DNS and the walled garden rules, you gotta jump into the command line interface, or CLI, and run this command. This basically tells the FortiGate, hey, if traffic matches this rule, just let it pass. Don't throw up the captive portal. You're exempting it, which is exactly what we need for this to work.
And that brings us to rule number 3. This is the big one. This is the rule that isn't exempt. It's tied to our Cloudi-Fi radius group. So when a user successfully logs in, the firewall sees them as part of that special group. This rule kicks in, and boom, they're on the internet.
And just like that, the main configuration is done. The bridge is built, the gates are open, and the rules are set. But you know the drill. We're not done until we've tested it out. Let's do some final checks. 2 quick things you're going to want to check right away. First, can the FortiGate actually talk to Cloudi-Fi to verify a user? And second, are your users going to see any scary certificate warnings when they connect? This is actually super easy because FortiGate has this great little built-in tool. Just go back to where we set up the Radius server and you'll spot a Test User Credentials button. You can plug in some test details and it'll tell you right away if the connection to Cloudi-Fi is working. It's a perfect sanity check. And there it is, a secure, professional, managed guest Wi-Fi network. You've just built a system that perfectly balances tight security with a really smooth user experience. With this powerful foundation in place, the real question is, what are you going to optimize next? Thanks for walking through this with me.